Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the Three Topics Gamer here to give you another episode of my weekly Q&A titled The People's Questions, or answer a series of questions that have been sent to me over the past week. This episode was fairly basic, nothing too extra extraordinary, and I think we might have even had one or two new, let's just say, questionnaires, I should say. So, before I start, I just want to thank all of you guys that happen to send your questions that I'll be answering for this video, as well as the questions that I answered in the comment section of the last video. And there's even, I believe, a couple of questions that someone else answered, so if you know who you are, I want to thank you for that, just to save me some time. And, like always, if you do happen to enjoy this video by the end, please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe and share it so we can help grow the channel. So, starting off with the first question coming from Blaring C89, and you want to know, if we ever get a Mortal Kombat 12, which I'm sure we will, what do you think would be the plot of the game? Well, it's going to be another reboot, in a sense, with, I believe, Liu Kang somehow trying to find a way to reform the realms. I mean, that's how Mortal Kombat 11 ended. I mean, Fire God Liu Kang got his hands on Chronicle's crown. He had just defeated Shang Tsung, and he went back and actually met with the legendary Kung Lao. And I think from that point on, I think he's probably going to train Kung Lao. So he defeats Goro, and then the timeline kind of changes in a sense, but it'll be about, Liu Kang reforming the world itself. What the actual main plot of it is going to be, I can't say, but just from what we know, from what we've seen, that's probably where the starting point of the next game is going to have to start. So, that's all I can say. Next question comes from the Batman of Neo Gotham. You want to know how, this one was really conflicting, but you want to know, how do I think Hatham's story would have turned out if he chose to abandon the Templars and work with Connor and Achilles? Here's the problem with that. I can't imagine Hatham doing that, because you have to remember he was trained by his father, and so he would have already had an insight of what the assassins were all about. So I can't imagine him after 20 or 30 years abandoning the Templars. He's a pretty devout Templar. I mean, at least with Shay, he had reasons for switching. I can't, and there's, as far as I can tell, there's no evidence of a Templar converting over to the Assassins. We know that Shay, maybe a few others are the only ones who start. I mean, there's one other character, but there are examples of Shay, who started out as a member of the Brotherhood, who transferred to the Templars, but there's no record of someone doing it in reverse, unless you called Elisa from, I want to say, Unity, I believe. It's a character I'm going to be talking about later on in the year. So I really don't know. I really cannot imagine him abandoning the Templars. He seemed pretty devoted. So yeah, I honestly don't know. Next question comes from JBat. You want to know, do I think the rumors of Dead Space 4 game will be a remake of the original Dead Space? If it is a remake or reboot, I think I can accept it at this point. I would be a little bit saddened, because I would have preferred the original timeline be at least finished off. Like, I would hope that they would do like at least one more game just to finish off the story, because Dead Space 3 did end on a cliffhanger with them returning to Earth, and Earth is now invaded, so they have to stop the Necromorphs from overrunning Earth, which I'm sure by the time they got back it already happened, so they pretty much have to save Earth. I would, or at least give me like a comic book or a novel that explains exactly what had happened. But if they do decide to reboot and try to retell the story of Dead Space, I would be totally up for that. I mean, it worked out well for Tomb Raider. I mean, I was never a Tomb Raider fan before the reboot, so I think at this point, at this point, I would just like anything new that's Dead Space. At this point, I'll accept anything. So, if they want to remake the first Dead Space game and redo the story, with updated graphics, updated gameplay, and updated everything, I would be totally fine with that. Next question comes from Phantom City. She wanted to know, I actually did a video about this. Since Ghost of Tsushima is getting a Director's Cut on the PlayStation 5, are there any other games from the PlayStation 4 era that you would like to see get their own Director's Cut, and which games would benefit the most? Here's the problem with that. I never once thought about these games getting Director's Cuts. I've never considered any game wanting to get a director's cut. Um, like if it's a great game on its own, I kind of feel like you don't need a director's cut. So when I look back at other games from the PlayStation 4 era, just sticking from what you said, I'm trying to think, well, what's something I think could actually benefit from one? I'm really not sure what would benefit because if it was a truly great game, I don't think it really needs it. And sorry if you guys hear that, my air conditioning just turned on. So I'll try to make this quick because I know the sound's kind of annoying. So I'll be honest, I have no idea. I personally, I mean, heck, even I wouldn't have picked Ghost of Tsushima in Death Stranding getting director's cut. So I'm really not sure what would benefit the most. Next question comes from the only new person I believe, and your name is James Stewart. You want to know, can I make another matchup between Altair and Ezio and on another matchup with Arno and Jacob Fry? Sadly, James, I think this is definitely going to be the last year I do the Versus series. I mean, the last two Versus series were difficult enough, and like hardly anyone is really watching the series anymore. And so that's proof that interest in the series is pretty much dead. And even when it comes to these kind of videos, I've actually gotten to the point where I'm not even having fun making them anymore. So these last 5 matchups for the rest of season 6, I'm just going to be doing them just to finish off the series, not because I want to at this point. So yeah, any chance of a season 7 or me doing any more Versus series after this year is pretty much dead at this point. So yeah, any more matchups, you'll have to go to another channel to get your answer from there because. Yeah, I think I'm fully fine with saying goodbye to the series for good. I mean, I gave it one more run. That's pretty much what all of last year was building up to, and it's looking like this last season is just kind of like it just seems like there aren't a lot of people that are interested in the Versus series, but there's like a number of key viewers out there that are like that scream the loudest for it to come back, and I'm really just doing it for them. So really, season 6 is really just for those people. But in terms of doing another season, doing more matchups after these last 5, I don't think I'm going to be doing any more. I think I'm done with the series after this year. And the last question of the episode comes from Hans the Conqueror. You want to know, would you like the gaming industry to go back to the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 era style of games, or the way games were before 2009? I would love nothing more than for the gaming to. I would love nothing more than for that gaming today. Those games are magical. Okay, Hans. Here's the problem with that question. Before 2009, well, what was wrong with that? I mean, when I look at all the games I have, or the mass majority of them, I have more games that I picked up after 2009 than before. I mean, I have like maybe 12 PlayStation 2 games, maybe 5 PlayStation 1 games, maybe only 3 Nintendo 64 games. I don't own any Super Nintendo games. So, I mean, in what sense would you like it to go back? Because if you're saying games are magical, I've played a lot of games over the past, say, 12 years I thought were absolutely magical and phenomenal. So, I wouldn't say games are in a bad place right now. I mean, heck, just mention a quick one, Ghost of Tsushima. That came out just last year, and that was a phenomenal game. I just got done playing Ratchet and Clank. That was a magical game. Returnal, that was a very interesting, unique concept of a game that I never experienced before. So I don't think games are in a bad place. I think there are some game companies that are a little too focused on putting politics and their own beliefs in games instead of just trying to make them fun. But there's definitely a number of games that are focused on being fun. So no, I would not like to go back to that era because I think that we're in a good era. It's just maybe not as consistent as past eras, but that doesn't mean we're not in a good era. I think we're in a good era, and there's a lot of potential for things to get better in the future. So no, I would not want to go back. I think things are just fine the way they are. Just they get a little bit frustrating at times. And that about does it for this episode of the People's Questions. If you guys have any more questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me roughly before noon of Thursday before I start filming the next episode. And like always, if you want to increase your odds of having your question answered in the video instead of in the comment section, just make them interesting or make them stand out, and that'll definitely increase your odds. And like always, I want to thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next week.